All right, everyone. I'm here with Travis Jarrard. Coach Jarrard, how are things?
Things are going well. Kind of recovery mode from a short but long high school season, if that makes sense. Now it's getting ready for some college prep.
Yeah. So, you're kind of juggling a little bit. We're on the call today talking about the SoCon, which you're going to call this weekend. So, but you're familiar. I mean, you've been up to Scuffle. You've been around, all these kids. You know these kids in these programs. So, is it a bit of a juggle though?
I wouldn't say a juggle. I mean, when you're on the call doing play-by-play, wrestling's wrestling, whether it's,
Right.
6 and under or college, as long as it's folk style. I wouldn't want to be on the mic for freestyle or Greco, because sometimes I don't even know what's going on. I watched the Olympics or Worlds with one of my daughters, and like, why did they get points there? I don't know. Correct throw? What? Got me there. But so, as long as it's folk style, I'm pretty good. I can handle that. And, I'm a pretty data driven type of person. So, I'm going to be combing through everything anyway. So might as well put it to use. And the SoCon office had a need, and I guess they heard our broadcast with the Chattanooga, West Virginia duel, and asked if we were available, and I said, yeah, I definitely am. So let's do it.
That's so much fun. I mean, it's nice to be asked to do so. I mean, you are data driven, so I mean, I know that. I mean, from just you and I personally, you love to get into the numbers and get into the different things. And one of the big numbers, and we're going to talk about a couple of different things, but one of the big numbers coming out as far as college wrestling, and that people don't normally watch, is this idea of allocation numbers. And the SoCon didn't get nearly as much allocation numbers as I think we all thought they might. So can you kind of delve into kind of what is allocation and then what they got and that sort of thing?
Yeah, I somewhat understand it. I rely heavily on Britt Malinsky's tweets and website to get a lot of accuracy. He understands it, and Nomad understands it a lot better than I do. But I think I understand it better than most. Just I'm no expert by any means. But yeah, they got 12 allocations. Each conference, gets at least one per weight class. Conference champ is guaranteed a spot in the NCAA tournament. And then after that, they've got these criteria. You got to be in a certain level on 2 of the 3 indexes. The coaches ranking, the RPI, win percentage, all of that stuff. And then they come up with some sort of formula. And again, I'm not an expert. I don't fully understand it, because sometimes I sit here and I look and I see, okay, the SoCon's got 3 guys ranked in the coaches ranking at this weight and 2 guys in the RPI at this weight, yet they only have 1 allocation number. So while I don't fully get it, I will say this, because there's a lot of talk about it on the message boards and Facebook groups and whatnot. I do like it better than what it was before, where they were using historical records, by conference and all of that stuff. So, the SoCon might get 3 bids at this weight class because, they had 3 superstar heavyweights that came through all at the same time. And so now you've got 3 bids going to the SoCon heavyweights, and they only have 1 decent guy there. So, and using that as an example, but so I like this format better, and people I saw a post today on Facebook about, the NCAA needs to take a look at the allocations and this formula. And yeah, there are definitely some things that raise eyebrows, but I also think that if before we make any drastic changes, I think we have to let the COVID wrestlers work their way through, maybe go back to it. I've talked to a lot of different people, wrestling people, college people, just fans of the sport. And there's a lot of talk about the, lower number of matches that the studs are competing in, and so, and part of that is, you get to be 25, 26 years old, and your body can't take the the pounding of a season that the 19, 20, 21-year-olds can. And so you sit out matches. And I think that's kind of having an impact on a lot of different things. So me personally, I would like to see the NCAA wait a little bit until we get, those COVID wrestlers, those 7-year wrestlers, 8-year wrestlers, in some cases out of eligibility, and kind of get things back to normal and see if it corrects itself before we, do damage to something that didn't necessarily need to be fixed, so to speak.
Yeah. So I think that, look, you're never going to have a perfect system, and allocation, like you said before, is so much better than it used to be.
Yes.
There are points, and we're going to get to it as we kind of talk about each of the brackets, where you kind of scratch your head. And I think you alluded to it earlier, where you've got three wrestlers who are ranked, and they only get one allocation, and you're going, I don't know how that actually works. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So, all right. So before we delve into the brackets, do you want to do the team race first, or do you want to do the brackets first?
Let's do team race.
Okay.
Team race. Yeah, start with team race. Kind of a little bit backwards, but yeah.
Yeah. So in the team race, Campbell, so it's really interesting. Campbell and App State have kind of dominated over the last handful of years, but Campbell is going for their 5th tournament title.
Yep.
And, App State has always come in kind of expected, but Campbell pulls it out in the tournament itself. How do you see it playing out this year? And I know UTC is kind of a little bit on the outside looking in. So kind of what do you think?
For as long as I've been following all these tournaments, and I've got manila folders with brackets filled out by hand, by the way.
And did you tape them on the wall? Do you tape them
that
on
are
the
like
wall
16, 17 years old? It's great. So it always seems like SoCon comes down to a 2-team race. There for the longest time it was UTC and somebody. It was, but the last few years it's been Campbell and App State, and this year if you look at the regular season, the dual matches, it came down to last weekend, Campbell and App State, and App State they've kind of asserted themselves this year. The brackets and seeds aren't released yet, but just looking through results and whatnot, App State, they might have 5 guys seated number 1. They might have another 2 or 3 guys seated number 2. So if you're putting 6, 7 guys in the finals, or at least seated to be in the finals, in an 8-man bracket, you're gonna be the favorite. And right. You look at the dual results, and App, they didn't. I wouldn't classify them as blowouts, but they went through the regular dual season, without being tested too much. And so I think going into things, they are definitely the favorite. But with that being said, an 8-team bracket, that allows teams that might not be quite as good to keep it closer than they normally would in a head-to-head duel, because that you could hope that one of the guys gets knocked off here, one of the guys gets knocked off there, you pull an upset here or there, and now things are a lot tighter than what they would be in, say, having 2 or 3 studs in a 50-team tournament. So while I think that Campbell, they definitely get the nod for finishing second behind App. Chattanooga will be about the same distance behind Campbell as App State going into it, looking at kind of expected results based on the dual results. But again, you're only 2-3 upsets away on both sides. You could get one and they could lose 2. They shouldn't, to bring things a whole lot closer, which then opens the door to have a pretty exciting finals with those wins being the placement points being worth 4 more in the finals.
So from your perspective on the outside, and I mean, I don't think it plays a role, but it does kind of make me think about it. And that is, there's only been say one allocation at say 125. And, you've got a kid who loses early, maybe doesn't feel like they're going to get an allocation. If they're one of them, they've got to fight back through to help their team still. I mean, this is still the conference championship. So, but that allocation is really what everybody wants.
Yeah, it is. But, you still have the at-larges there.
You do.
And so if you're one of those guys that picked up the AQ, the automatic qualifier spot, if you're the one that secured that for the conference, which 9 of the 10 weight classes, somebody secured it in the SoCon. So if you're that guy, you can't, unless you're injured and your injury defaulting out, you can't really afford to drop another match and, fall in the conso semis or, finish fourth instead of third. So, you got to do your best to get third. So that way, when the committee looks at it, they can say, okay, because one of the things they look at is where, if you were an AQ, then that kind of puts you into a tier of people to be considered. You were an AQ, but you didn't get your bid. You solidified the bid for the conference, but you didn't get to that point. You're in that pool that gets, looked at for being one of the at-larges. So, finishing as high as you can is something that they definitely, team race, no team race, whatever you want to do. If you're wanting to get into Tulsa, then you better get as high on that podium as you can.
100%. And I'm glad you brought it up earlier, in that we are doing this, and I'm going to release it tomorrow, but we're doing this before the brackets have actually been released, before the seats have been released. So we're going to talk about the brackets kind of in a general sense, because we're not going to know who is going to be seeded 1, 2, potential matchups, things along those lines. But we have enough information that we'll be able to talk about it. So jump into 125. I think off the top, from what I've read and what I've seen watching college wrestling this year, Caleb Smith returns as an NCAA qualifier. He's been fantastic. And, he's probably your 1 seed. He's, so on and so forth. But there's some other good wrestlers in the group, Anthony Moulton from Campbell and a few others. How do you see 125? There is only one spot, for that champ. So
you got one spot at 25. Caleb Smith has been the most dominant one. He's undefeated in the SoCon this year. He's highest ranked. He's ranked 13th in the coaches rankings, 14th in the RPI. So he achieved that spot. If he were to lose in the finals, I think he's getting one of the wild cards, unless just you have utter chaos in all the other conference tournaments. And that's one of the things that the casual fan's never going to understand. It's my favorite part of conference weekend is, identifying those brackets that just go haywire across the conference, not just in one, not just the Big Ten gets turned upside down, but you get a major, like 3 or 4 guys drop at the Big Ten, 2 or 3 at the Big 12, 2 EIWA guys. And now all of a sudden you've got 4 top ranked guys, top 20 guys that are all looking for that at large. And so that sort of situation, when it occurs, it really throws a kink into a smaller conference like SoCon, or even the MAC for that matter with right now. Cause you get that AQ, but things go haywire everywhere else, and now you're really hurting. So
if you're a SoCon fan, you want it to kind of go to chalk in the other conferences. So
you want it to go to chalk in the other conferences, and you want yours to have upsets galore. That way you get the champ in and the guy that qualified the spot for the conference. You get both of them in. So you might get 2, sometimes even 3 in a weight class. And that's kind of what you want if you're, just a SoCon fan. You definitely want everything else to go to chalk as much as possible.
Well, and that happened last year at 125, because Caleb Smith was a number 3 coming. There were 3 125s that got in last year. So,
and I think that I could probably look on my brackets that I have from last year, but I think they had 2 bids at 125 last year as well. So you got Caleb Smith, and like you said, we don't have the actual seeds yet. We don't have the brackets. I did a lot of digging starting on Monday. And while I don't know I don't have official seeds, I've got a pretty good idea of what the seeds are going to be just based on, in-season results. So I think Caleb Smith's going to be your one. Moulton is ranked from Campbell. He's ranked in the coaches ranking. He's ranked in the RPI, but he lost a match earlier in the year to Chavez from Presbyterian. So you got to think that that's going to be a 2-3 matchup there. Moulton, if he wants to get one of those at-large bids, obviously he wants to win the tournament, which, he could definitely do. There's no saying that that's not going to happen. He only lost by 3 to Smith earlier in the year. So, but if he doesn't, he definitely needs to pop in there into the finals, to boost his resume, so to speak, for one of those at-large bids. Cause I think there's 4 or 5 at 125. So, that's one that, and most of them it is 4 or 5, 197, I believe has 7. So Moulton, for the team race, that would be a little upset, getting second over third. That's a projected bump of about 3 points. That would be no, 4 points. So that would be something that, would help in closing that gap that, App has going into the tournament. So,
right.
but Chavez beat him earlier in the year. So those three are your three kind of main contenders, so to speak. But one thing that, that I've seen just looking at SoCon brackets, there's always going to be somebody that's not a contender that, hey, how'd that guy get on? So, but those are the three, that you're definitely going to want to keep an eye on early rounds bracket.
So before we jump to 133, I want you to tell me what's your favorite bracket in, what's the most interesting bracket? What's the most
to me, it's
way?
184.
184.
133 is a close second.
Okay.
You've got Oakley, you've got Zacconi, and you've got Palmer. Three guys that are all three in the coaches' rankings. Palmer and Zacconi are both RPI. Oakley came in later in the season because the app starter got hurt. Carter got hurt, so Oakley came in and then beat both of those guys. So he's probably going to be the number one seed. So that's one that is a great one. But to me, it's 184. And I'm not saying this because two of the top three are from Georgia, even though that does help a little bit. But having Hopkins, Jaquan Anderson from Gardner-Webb, and Matthew Waddell at Chattanooga, those three guys, they each beat each other. Waddell beat Hopkins, Anderson beat Waddell, Hopkins beat Anderson. You're probably looking at Hopkins being the number one seed. He's returning conference champ. Waddell is too, but Waddell's dropping a weight. He was 97, while Hopkins was 184. Between those three guys, you've got 6 conference finals appearances. So you got 7 placements at conference. They went round and round with each other. Like I said, I don't know the seeds. I'm based on the results this year. Waddell dropped a match to somebody else in the conference, so I think that's going to kind of pull him out and put him at 3, and then you kind of go head to head between Hopkins and Anderson. That's why I think Hopkins will be 1, Anderson will be 2, Waddell will be 3. So that's a barn burner of a semifinal match between Anderson
and that's a very important semifinal because there's only one allocation spot at 184.
Yeah.
So that semi puts you in the finals. Whether you win or lose, you got to feel, because of how the quality of all three of the individuals, you got to feel pretty that you might get an AQ there. Your third place guy's got to feel much less comfortable.
Yeah, unless if it's Anderson, he's definitely going to be uncomfortable. He's going to be Waddell. He's going to be uncomfortable, but he's probably not going to be quite as uncomfortable because he was the one that qualified the spot, and that's one of the things that they look at. So, if Anderson knocks off Waddell, then Waddell definitely needs to be cheering for Anderson to win that bid, because he's got a leg up on Hopkins when it comes time for the committee to look at the qualifier. Who gets an at-large.
Right.
But either way, to me, those three guys together, they're all three ranked in the coaches ranking. Waddell's the only one that's ranked in RPI, but they're ranked 28th, 30th, and 33rd in the coaches ranking. So, they're all right there. To me, that's the most exciting to me. And it's not just because Waddell and Anderson are from Georgia.
Yeah. So are you going to give me a favorite? You want to tell me who's going to win, or even just a favorite? Hey,
I've had my wrestlers whipped up on by Waddell so many times in my career that I'm never picking against him ever. It's just that simple.
I love it. All right. So jumping back to 133, there's 2 allocations at 133, which is one of the few weight classes that has it. You've already mentioned, Zacconi, Palmer, Oakley. Those are your top 3 guys, but another Georgia kid sitting down there who probably is maybe your 4 seed and as tough as nails is Todd Carter.
Yeah, and if you just want to know how tough he is, he lost to Palmer 2-1, who you're looking at is probably going to be the 3 seed. He lost to Oakley 6-5, who's probably going to be the 1 seed. So, if you really want to look at it, the most interesting part of this bracket is you put Carter against Oakley in the semis, and now let's say Carter gets the upset. Well, that's some big points that App's losing from their, projected, wrestle to seed total, and brings Campbell or Chattanooga kind of into the race. It also would draw Gardner-Webb a lot closer to that 3 spot with Chattanooga. So, there's lots of little things to kind of look at in a bracket that's got, 3 guys that are ranked in the coach ranking. 2 of them got AQs, but that 4th one is kind of hanging out there that can beat any one of the 3. So,
all right.
yeah.
So who's the favorite?
Oakley won 3-1 over Zacconi. Beat Chattanooga, beat Palmer 5-2. That's 2 close matches. They're wrestling in their gym in Boone, so that's going to kind of play a little bit of favorites. Plus, I look at it from a standpoint of he's not supposed to be there, and I say that not from a standpoint of
because
he's not good
Sean
enough.
Carter
Just right, Sean Carter.
Right.
Yeah, he was the guy. And so you hear these stories all the time. You see these people all the time, make the most of what you got. He's got an opportunity, he doesn't have anything to lose because, again, he wasn't supposed to be there. So goes out there and takes care of business. So I'm going to go there. But Palmer, he proved it at the scuffle, finished 2nd, beat a lot of top ranked guys. He kind of, I don't know if he hit a wall or he just kind of had a little bit of a swoon here in January. So, is he going to, or January and February, is he going to, kind of pick things back up, going to have almost 2 full weeks off in between the last duel and now, is he, healing up something that's injured? Is he kind of getting the fire back? Whatever it might be, because if he can roll back into form that he was in January 1st and 2nd, then he's the guy.
Well, and I'm glad you brought up swoons because as we moved to 141, Shannon Hanna has been the guy.
Yeah.
But he had a tough December. He ran he lost several matches in December. He's looked like the man since then. But 41's tough. I mean, 41 has Franco Valdez from Chattanooga, who's been there a lot.
And that's probably who he's going to get in the semis.
Right. You got Gagne from App State. And then you got Zach Price from Gardner Webb, So how do you see 141 kind of playing out?
Well, I haven't seen anybody from Gardner Webb wrestle yet this year. I mean, I've seen Carter wrestle. I've seen Jaquan Anderson wrestle, in years past. I missed the Gardner Webb Chattanooga duel. I think we were at sectionals or I don't know. So I wasn't able to get up there for that.
You didn't have it on your phone? You didn't.
Well, I was kind of coaching. I was kind of watching my coach's coach. But to me, I did get to see Shannon Hanna against Valdez. And they've had 3 close matches in the past. And that match wasn't close. So I don't know if Hanna just kind of figured it out, but he looked good. He looked dominant. He's undefeated in the conference. And really he had a close match with Citadel, Silka, close match with Price from Gardner Webb 2-1, but that was earlier in the year. He's picked it up a little bit since then. So I think you got to go with him. He's a returning champ. He was a finalist the year before that. He's got the experience. He's been there, and I know Valdez has, but he's been banged up all year. I don't know if 2 weeks is enough to recover and get everything back to where it needs to be. So I just think that Hanna's kind of been there, done that, and ready to roll again. Based on, results and expected seeds of Price 2 and Gagne 3, Gagne may be the one that he sees in the finals. That was a close match, or that wasn't a close match. Hanna, that was just a couple weekends ago, and Hanna majored him. So I'm gonna stick with the number 1 seed, the likely number 1 seed, Hanna, on that one. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So let's jump to 149. And if you're a SoCon fan, I'm going to pull a
Lucas here. Da Silva or Milner. Enough said. Move on. Yeah, here's the thing. I say that, but Noah Castillo's good.
He is good. He good.
Was freshman wrestler of the year last year. I mean, he is good. It's just just like at every other sport, there's levels. And Milner, 2-time All-American, 3-time champ. You got to expect he's going to win. He 4-0 against Castillo, 8-0, 18-7, pin, so he's pretty much dominated the conference and the matches that he was in. You got to expect him to get a win. How many bonus points is he going to rack up along the way? But at the same time, everybody wants to just Milner, but you can't gloss over Castillo because he is legitimately really, really good.
So if Castillo's on the bottom side and he happens to get to the finals, is there a shot that he gets a bid, or do you think 49 is going to be SoCon's only going to get one from here?
I don't know if that one's one that's 4 or 5. Again, it depends on how the rest of the conferences go. I don't know how many, if Castillo is going to have enough quality wins.
That's the thing.
He hasn't started, or no, yeah, Castillo went most of these. It's just, I think that one will be a tough one for him to get. Unless the big thing that he could have going for him is if he has a good match. Let's say he pushes Milner a little bit, and Milner gets a late takedown in the third to beat him 7-5 or 8-5 or something like that. And because they do another set of coaches rankings after conference.
Right.
So, maybe Castillo enters the coaches rankings after that performance. He goes out there and dominates Rivera or beats Rivera, makes the finals, has a good close match with Milner, he enters those coach rankings. Sure. Then definitely. But without that, I don't know. He definitely needs to have everything else go to chalk. But then, the next 2 years, watch out, because 149 is going to be his in the SoCon, and he's going to start rolling. I don't think he's going to get the Milner status as far as, somebody that you're expecting to be an All-American every year, but he's pretty daggum good.
Well, just to throw this out there, I mean, we've been thrown out a bunch of names at 149. Obviously, Milner's the man, but you named Noah Castillo and Chris Rivera, both like Highland Prep wrestlers.
Teammates,
so they're not doing too bad as far as pushing kids to that next level. So
it's funny because when I was going through there's a lot of Lake Highland Prep kids wrestling in this tournament. I was looking for Georgia wrestlers, which are 11, but just the number that I came across Lake Highland Prep, like, I was like, man, we got 11 Georgia wrestlers. Lake Highland Prep's got like 6. But in the duel with Campbell and Chattanooga, when you're watching them wrestle, it almost looked like teammates wrestling. Neither one of them could do much of anything with each other. So, that's going to be one of those semifinal matches that, it could go either way. It's going to come down to one takedown. But, Castillo won the last one. Give him the nod for this one. He was in, wrestled in the SoCon tournament last year. Got third. So, All
right. So let's move to 157. And, I don't want to say, I think we thought that Troy Nation was going to be the man at 157, but Tommy Askey is wrestled superb for App State. I don't know if really, Lincoln Heck is in there, and there's a couple other names that I know of, but those are the two, especially with the year that Askey has had so far.
Yeah. Askey is definitely one of those guys that, I don't want to say he came out of nowhere.
Right.
I know who he is and I've heard about him, but you're right. You weren't expecting him to be at the top of the heap at the end of the regular season. The thing about Nation is, and Heck for that matter, if you got some time on your hands, go back into the archives on ESPN Plus and find that match, Chattanooga versus Campbell, and watch the Troy Nation Lincoln Heck match. It's going to be like 5 minutes long because Nation ended up pinning him in the fifth or in the second period, I believe. But those two just threw each other all over the place. It was insane. I was loving it. I think I made a comment on that. If every single college wrestling match was like this, we'd have more fans than the World Cup because they were just flying all over. Just literally just flying all over the place. You would have thought it was scripted. So with the way those
that could
two
be the
are,
semi. That could be a semi.
I hope so. I really hope so. That would be great because that was one of the funnest matches I got to see all year. So, but yeah, both those guys, they're throwing caution to the wind. They're getting after it. Both of them are explosive. Both of them are dynamic. So, while Askey is kind of that solid, consistent, he scores a lot. Don't get me wrong. His matches this year, he beat Nation 11-3. He beat Heck. He scored 13 against Heck. He scored 12 against VMI, 22 against Gardner Webb, and he pinned 21 against Presbyterian. So Askey's scoring too. It's just He's kind of that more consistent. I'm
Right.
just gonna, bludgeon you to score points, whereas Heck and Nation are flying all over. There's gonna be one of those two is gonna get at least one pin this weekend, maybe two, because they're going for broke. So can they catch Askey? I don't know. Maybe that's why they allowed Askey to score so much on them, because they were just flying around.
Because they're like the Bryce Andonians of the 157 or the
Yeah.
SoCon, right? I mean,
Yes. Yeah, throw him in there. Right?
So is Askey your favorite? Is that
Yeah,
who
yeah. I mean,
okay.
you don't major your way through, which almost major your way
I
through
agree.
the regular season and not come in as the favorite. I think him and Milner and Rocky Jordan are probably my three that are at the top that you sit there and say, yeah, they could lose, but
Not
chances
likely.
are not likely. Yeah.
All right, so let's jump to 165, and this is a fun weight. So you got Roderick Mosley from Gardner Webb. You got a Georgia kid in there, Will Formato, who kind of burst onto the scene with wins over one of the Bullards, during their matches with NC State a few years ago. You got Don Baker in there, Weston Wickman. So there's a lot to kind of unpack at 165 pounds. And we've got, again, one allocation spot.
Yeah. And this is one of those ones, like I was saying, is you scratch your head. You look at coaches' rankings, Formato 26, Mosley 29, RPI, Formato 24, Mosley 28. So they've got two of the three criteria right there. Right. So I don't know if it's win percentage. Like I said, I'm not an expert. I defer to Pirate and Nomad on those when it comes to allocations. And, when conference gets done on Sunday, start looking at them, because they do a bang up job educated guessing who the at-larges are going to be. I mean, you got a question, hey, so-and-so got beat. You think they can get an at-large? They're the two guys to ask, because they really do kind of hammer down those numbers pretty well.
And just to pause for just a second, Wrestling by Pirate is Britt, and Britt sends out a massive amount of Excel spreadsheets to help you kind of unpack everything. So go right ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, he is definitely a great resource to use. So, but yeah, I really think Wickman's pretty good. He's a good wrestler, but I think there's a definite tier between Mosley and Formato above Wickman. Wickman got fourth 2 years ago. He's another one of those kind of guys. It's a lot of fun to watch. But Mosley and Formato, they each have placed 3 times. Mosley won it last year. Formato got third last year. Formato's gotten third the last 2 years. So, but like you said, he kind of jumped onto the scene, knocking off one of the Bullards. That kind of got him up into the rankings, and he's really never, left them since then. So, I think between those two, I think that's the finals match that you're looking for, that you're more than likely going to see. And it could go either way. I like what I saw last year out of Mosley, winning it. I don't remember if he beat Formato in the semis, or if Formato lost to Nicholson in the semis, but Mosley ended up winning it last year. And I think he's going to repeat this year. All
right. So let's jump up to 74. You've already mentioned this name, but we're going to unpack this, because 174 has 2 allocations. And I'm going to give a little bit of background. Rocky Jordan moved in from, was it Wisconsin, Ohio State?
Ohio State.
Yeah. Ohio State. Yeah. Now at Chattanooga, has looked unbelievably good. I do want to throw out Will Miller, though, from App State, Alabama kid, Thompson, Alabama, who, man, he pushed Lewis from Virginia Tech to the brink. He's wrestled fantastic. You got some other good kids in this bracket. One, have you been how impressed have you been with Rocky Jordan? And 2, Will Miller, can he stay with him?
I mean, he can, yeah. He only lost by 6 in the duel. So, obviously he can be there. The thing about Jordan is, and getting to watch him as much as I have, especially in duels when I was, on air, being able to really focus on what he does. He doesn't really vary anything from match to match. He's going to come at you. He's going to attack you the same way. He's just so technically sound at what he does. He sets things up. He gets you to do what he wants you to do. He attacks. He scores. And he gets you on the mat, and he does it. It's different than I've ever seen on how he pulls that arm into a 2-on-1 and gets into those tilts that he runs. He's not a big pinner. He did pick up a couple of pins this year, but he can rack up the near fall. He can, and like I said, he does it different than I've ever seen. Usually you're on inside control and pulling it in, and he kind of goes over the top and takes your base out. It's interesting to watch. I would like, somebody a little bit better at, breaking down techniques, somebody like, Roper or even Montesino, my old assistant, to kind of show me exactly what he's doing there. Cause I'd never really seen it done that way before, but it obviously works for him. And like I said, he does it to everybody, and he does it multiple times in each match, the same takedown, the same breakdown, the same tilt, and just scores.
It's coming, and it is what it is. So my
Eagles quarterback sneak.
Before we go to 184, who has the better shot of being an All-American? And you might think both of them do, but if you're going to put one above the other, is it Milner or Rocky Jordan from SoCon?
149 is so tough.
I know, because I think as a two-time returning All-American, you would say Milner, but 49. I mean,
it's loaded.
It is loaded.
I mean, you got freshmen like Caleb Henson in there that, they weren't in the tournament last year,
right.
That's now jumped up and neither one of them's ranked in All-American position. So best chance, I probably, I don't know. I'm going to say Milner.
Okay.
Even though I think it's kind of equal for the two of them. Milner's got a tougher bracket. A tougher weight class of 49, but he's been there. He's done that. He's done it twice before. But
that's big.
At the same time, how many times have we seen it at state tournament wrestling, at, the NCAAs, guys expecting, he comes back because last year he's a senior. He's placed before 4th, 5th, whatever. And, he's looking to get higher, and he drops an early one and says, not worth it. And drops a match to somebody that they majored earlier in the year. So I think the chances of that happening to Milner are greater than they are to Jordan. I don't see either one of them making the finals. So I don't know, maybe I'll switch. I don't know. I would say Milner just because he's done it twice before, but maybe having not All-American before, that pushes Jordan, into All-American status.
Got it. All right, so let's jump to 184. Actually, we already did 184.
Yeah.
So let's jump to 197. And we got one allocation here. We've seen the emergence of one of those like Ethan Oakley. We've seen the emergence of Carson Floyd from App State. He's kind of, as a freshman, kind of burst onto the scene. But this feels like Levi Hopkins, Campbell. There's other guys in the weight. Don't get me wrong, Jake Boyd and so on and so forth. But Hopkins has been at another level. Yeah.
I think with this one, I think Hopkins is definitely the favorite going in. Obviously, he's more likely going to be the 1 seed. He was the automatic qualifier, so he's got that going for him. He's ranked both the coaches poll and the RPI poll, so he's going to be the 1 seed going in. Floyd's going to be the 2. After that, the seeding. It's kind of a toss-up. There's, guys that are sitting out matches, guys beat this guy, that guy. So those semifinal matchups, which play such a big part in who goes where in tournaments, especially that 2-3 and that 3-6 and whatnot. That one, to me, this is the weight class that's more unsettled than any of the others. I feel like I can do a pretty good job of an educated guess of what the seeds are going to be in the weight classes. This is the one where I'm like, yeah. So a lot of
but Hopkins is the one. But
I think so. Yeah, I think he's definitely. I mean, he's beaten everybody else. He beat Floyd. He beat Mora. He beat Boyd. So yeah, I think he's going to be the one. And I think he's got a pretty clear path to the finals. You're looking at 4 or 5. Could be Musaf from VMI, Boyd from Chattanooga. It could be Mora. Mora could drop down to 4, and one of them be at 3. So I think he's got the best road to kind of get to the finals without being pushed as much, which I think is what Floyd's going to kind of run up against. You know, he's definitely going to have. I just think there's a pretty good sized gap between 3 and 4. Yeah. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And so Floyd's definitely got a little bit more of a roadblock and obstacle in front of him. You know, he had a close match with Boyd a couple weeks ago at Ab. I think it was 3-2, 3-1. You know, that's one takedown. And there's so many results that are like that, where you've got the guys that I'm expecting to be 3rd and the guy I'm expecting to be seated 6th. Yeah, they wrestled and it was a 1 takedown match. It was 3-1 or it was 3-2. And so it's, you know, one guy eats just 1 flake more of Wheaties in the morning and now he flips that result. So, you know, it's just there's so many. The difference in these guys is so small. It's so small that it's just one. You might have a bad warm up. Maybe you had a bad. I don't want to say a bad cut, but maybe cutting weight was you messed up. Maybe it was a little bit different, so you're not quite as energized. And that could be all the difference in the world in a tournament like this, you know. Right. And that's one of the big differences between, you know, college and even higher level high school. It's just the difference between the 3 and the 6 is so minuscule that it's just one little thing. Yeah. And that doesn't even get into the randomness of the sport of wrestling. I mean, you know, how many scrambles do we see? You know, all of a sudden you catch a guy there for 2 seconds, you get your swipes. Now you're up by 4.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
And it's a lot easier to protect a 4-point lead in college. I think partly because they're at such a better level, but you know, you get that 4-point lead in college against 2 guys that are pretty daggum equal. I don't care if you do got 5.5 minutes left in the match. Those guys are good enough at protecting that.
You're so going to struggle if you're behind. All right. So 285, Tay Gadali, I think that's how you say his name, from Campbell. Yes. I watched him wrestle at
he's fun
down in Jacksonville. He's a big kid, but he's not like your traditional heavyweight, in that he's slinging you. You know, it's a lot of fun to watch. You know,
it's funny that people our age use that term traditional heavyweight all the time, but these younger fans, to them, what are you talking about? Yeah. You know, they're not used to the old big boys that are coming out there that, you know, taking the apron off. They're used to seeing these guys that look like linebackers.
Right.
You know, that's the, you know, we say that traditional heavyweight sort of thing, and it's kind of like, what are they talking about?
Right.
You know,
we dated ourselves.
Yeah, so many of these guys. I mean, I think Cassiope from Iowa is a perfect example. He came into college like a traditional heavyweight, and now he looks like a modern heavyweight.
Right. Well, and you know, I say Tay, you know, at Campbell, but you know, another kid who's sitting kind of really right on his heels, who's made had a fantastic season, is another guy who is a not traditional heavyweight from Georgia, Jonathan Chester at the Citadel, who, man, he looks super impressive. I don't know that he gets the Tay's level and wins SoCon, but he looks like somebody who is definitely on the right trajectory. Yeah,
and he's young. You know, he's got some time, and really, the thing about Chester is he's kind of still growing into. You know, he was a 97 pounder last year.
Right.
You know, so I like you said, I don't know if he's quite up there with Gadali yet, but he's tricky enough and he's strong enough, and he's, you know, he'll take enough risks to where he could catch him. You know, he lost 8-3, you know, 5 points, couple takedowns, a few escapes. You know, he can get a couple takedowns, he can put on a ride. And pull it off, I think. I
can't look past Josh Evans, though. I mean, of VMI, so
or Satorio from App. I think App will probably be the 3 seed. Evans will be the 4 seed.
I thought the VMI kid might be the 3 seed, but okay.
Yeah. Well, then you got Logan Andrew in there too. So from Chattanooga, he beat VMI too. So, you know, I think Gadali's going to end up probably seeing either Andrew or Evans in the semis, and you're going to get Chester and Satorio in the semis. And that's one of those very few spots where App's got a really good chance at, you know, exceeding their projected seeds too. So, you know, because they're coming in at a 3. Chester pinned Storio earlier in the year. So those things are one of those, and that's kind of where Chester's at, you know. He can catch you, he can get you in uncomfortable spots. You know, I didn't see the match between Chester and Satorio. Very well could have been Chester was just blowing him out and finally pinned him. But, you know, sometimes when you see those results, especially in college, it's like, okay, so what's going to happen if they go 6 or 7 minutes?
Right? Yeah.
You know, so you know, it's definitely not a given that Chester's going to be there in the finals. You know, being a Georgia guy, and he's got a little bit of ties to my program from one of my assistant coaches. You know, with him in jiu-jitsu, I definitely, you know, want to see him do well.
Yeah. Well, and he has. I mean, it's been actually a lot of fun to watch him progress over the course of the season. So
yeah,
I've watched some Citadel matches, and I watched him very early against Queens, and it was Queens, and no offense to Queens or anything like that.
Yeah.
But you know, watching him progress and it just seems to get better and better and better as he's gone through. So
yeah.
anyway.
Oh, definitely.
All right. So that is a breakdown of each of the weights, or each of the brackets weights in the SoCon. Give for people who don't know, give a little bit of background just on like when it starts. You're going to be on what, ESPN? Is that right?
ESPN Plus. Yep, it's going to stream on ESPN Plus. The early rounds start at 10 o'clock Saturday morning. Finals are supposed to start at 7. So they have 2 mats down. The early round broadcast they do it a little bit different than like the ACC and stuff. They don't have a separate camera. They just have one stream going and they split screen it. And in years past, they didn't have any announcers on. So when I got asked to do the finals, I asked if I could do the other rounds. And the guys in the conference office, they were kind of, but when I asked the App State guys that are going to be on site, they're like, yeah, sure. If you want to do it, if you want to sit there and talk about wrestling for 10 hours, by all means, be our guest. And I'm like,
well, I mean, you're going to be watching it anyway. Well,
you don't know me. There, my partner Gabriel Schrei. You know, and I'm not going to be doing like play-by-play of 2 matches at once. That'd be fun, but it's just kind of be given information and really kind of talking about the impact of the results a lot. You know, so you know, so when there is an upset, what does that mean? You know, so why is that a big deal? Because a lot of people, you know, they don't know what the brackets look like and all that. So it's going to be like, okay, yeah, you know, this is the projected difference in points between, you know, App and Campbell and App and Chattanooga, and you know, this upset here for App brings that total down to this or up to that, or this win right here in the Conso semis by whoever just clinched it for Presbyterian, you know, whoever it may be.
Right. Well, I mean, you're going to be watching the matches anyway. Why wouldn't you be on the mic having a conversation about it, right?
Yeah, might as well. You know, just kind of talk wrestling.
Well, Travis, I appreciate you taking the time, and it sounds like it's going to be a blast. I will be in Florida at the Florida State tournament, but I will definitely tune in because I think we'll probably be finished right when you're getting ready to go on for the finals. So
yeah,
that'll be a lot of fun.
Looking forward to it. It's going to be good. I got my daughter's coming up. She's going to be taking pictures for Chattanooga and stuff. So it's going to be kind of like a semi-family affair, I guess. So yeah, it'll be fun.
Yeah, no doubt. Travis, I appreciate it, man. You take care.
Thanks, Jason.